Hello. Hope everyone can see me and can hear me properly. I'm not really sure what's happening in the background. So, yeah, thank you for turning up to my session. My name is Amani Ibrahim. I am a cybersecurity academic and professional at the Center of Cybersecurity, um, at the Center of Cybersecurity Research and Innovation. So, yeah, not sure. Let me check with Abdullah if it's the right time to start or, yes, he's saying go live. Okay. So, a little bit of background about myself before I start. I've been in the cyber industry for over 20 years now. I'm leading a number of large-scale R&D projects with the industry, either locally here in Australia or overseas, with the government as well and the defense. I'm pretty sure you watched and listened to different talks, many interesting talks, either technical, managerial, or talks about enabling different cybersecurity strategies. So I decided today to be a little bit different and talk about the challenges of leveraging cyber threat intelligence from a research perspective rather than from an industry perspective. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a very traditional background. I'm pretty sure all of you should be aware about this, but let's start where is the problem actually. Let's say most of the industry, if not all the industries, including manufacturing, retail, finance, education, healthcare, and public sector, and all of them face growing cybersecurity concerns. Okay, and the problem is, despite significant increase in cybersecurity solutions investment, organizations are still plagued by security breaches, especially data breaches. The financial consequences of security breaches are set on the rise, and the cost goes beyond potential fines. I will take data breaches as an example. So in cybersecurity, we have a huge number of threats, different threats and risks. But today I'll just take data breaches as an example to take from there into this threat intelligence problem. As we all know, data breaches are one of the top cybersecurity problems affecting the digital economy. Data breaches continue to grow a year after year, and 2019 broke all the records with millions of dollars of losses. So if you check the news, I'm not really sure about what's happening in Egypt and the Arab area. So here, for example, if you're talking about the Australian or the worldwide landscape, we're gonna find that there are tens of large-scale data breaches that happens on yearly basis. So for example, if I would give you an example, in May 2019, Canva suffered a data breach that exposed email addresses, usernames, names, and salted and hashed passwords of over 130 million users. Another example of a data breach, a serious data breach, is the Equifax data breach, one of the largest credit bureaus. Equifax experienced a data breach as a result of vulnerability in their website, exposing confidential information of around 140 million consumers, and they had to pay over $500 million as a settlement, as a penalty for this data breach. So, these numbers and the news, before I move to the next slide, so these numbers and news about data breaches has recently been exposed or declared publicly in the Western world, in Australia and the rest of the world, because recently we have new laws and regulations that mandates all the industry organizations, if they experience a data breach, they have to publicly disclose this. But I'm pretty sure if you're going to look at the Egyptian landscape or even the whole Arab world, I'm pretty sure many organizations are experiencing data breaches and they don't publicly disclose it. Why data breaches are serious? Oh, okay. Now I need to talk about this slide before talking about why data breaches are serious and why it's the problem is serious in this case. So most data breach incidents could take, the problem with data breaches is most data breach incidents could take several months actually, or even a year to be discovered. Okay, and this is a really serious problem. Imagine your data has been stolen and they are sold in the dark web and you're not sure about it and you're not aware about it. The latest report from Verizon Security shows that more than a quarter of incidents that had gone unnoticed for many months and 1/10 had gone unnoticed for over a year. So for example, I'll give you an example for the Sony's latest data breach. The data breach had gone unnoticed for almost a year with an estimated breach cost of $1 billion. So it's a huge number. So I'm just talking about these things to explain for you the scale of the problem and how serious is the problem. So data breaches, unfortunately, comes with multiple direct and indirect cost factors that are significant to the survival and the competitiveness of the businesses, including financial, reputational, operational, and regularity aspects as well. So a data breach not only affects the competitive edge of a company in the marketplace, but also reduces the trust from the consumers or the customer's point of view. Data breaches, on the other hand, announcements of data breaches have a critical effect on stock price. For example, after the Equifax data breach, we have noticed that the Equifax announcement had a negative impact on their market activity and stock price. Okay, so now we know that we have a cybersecurity problem, and we spoke about data breaches as an example. There are definitely millions of other security breaches and threats that we could talk about, but I just spoke about data breaches today. So continue with that. Okay, let's talk about existing solutions, how the industry are reacting to data breaches, how the industry are stopping this threat. Actually, if we're going to look about what's happening now in the industry and how the reaction to data breaches, it's not effective and it's not sufficient. Why? Let me first tell you that the greater source of data breaches are from external hackers. Okay, but unfortunately, the problem is existing solutions, and we call them DLPs, data loss prevention solutions, only focus on internal hackers or insiders. Let's make it simple for you. If we're going to talk about hacking wells, we simply have insiders and outsiders. Insiders mean someone who has a footprint inside the network, the organization network, and outsider, someone from the outside world. So those who have a footprint inside the organization network are simply the employees and the internal users. These DLP solutions mainly focus on internal users to detect data breaches. DLPs use business rules to classify and protect business data so that unauthorized users can't accidentally or maliciously share data. And as I said again, this is not sufficient because the majority of data breaches are happening from external hackers. This is why we need to think about the cybersecurity problem from a totally different angle and a different perspective. And it's not only about this. Let's talk about incident response plans, for example, when it comes to data breaches. Incident response plans to a data breach usually take place after the data is leaked and it's already outside the corporate walls. So it's absolutely useless. The security teams usually analyze system logs as the primary way of conducting forensics, and if they need to provide any evidence to the court, they use these properly managed logs. This approach doesn't limit the effect of a data breach nor stop a data breach. So it's a time now actually to look at the problem again from a different perspective. This is why threat intelligence has been recently introduced. Let me double check my phone. I want to make sure that I'm good. I'm not getting any. Yep. So all good. I'm not getting any notifications from Abdullah saying there is something wrong. Okay. So threat intelligence has been recently introduced as a key enabler to protect future potential security threats even before they could happen or reach targeted organizations. Threat intelligence is changing the current reactive defense approach to a more proactive approach that can defend against threats that emerge outside the business threat landscape before they even could take place. Threat intelligence simply is the practice of integrating, analyzing disjoint cyber and business data to extract evidence-based insights regarding an organization's unique threat landscape. And here I'm stressing on the word unique threat landscape. Actually, in order to enable proper and efficient cybersecurity countermeasures. Every organization is different. Every business is different. We don't have in cyber, we don't have this one size fits all. We don't have this. We need to change the methodology and the mentality of having just one generic cybersecurity solution that can defend people who are working, for example, in the education sector, in the manufacturing sector, in the infrastructure sector. So, having threat intelligence enabled simply enables us to explain who the adversary is, how and why they are compromising the organization's digital assets, what consequences could happen following the attack, what assets could be compromised, and how to respond to the threats. Before I speak about a case study to explain more about threat intelligence, I just want to remind you, if you've got any question, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions live. So feel free to post your question now, and at the end of my presentation, I'm going to have a look at my mobile phone and answer any questions if you have. So, back to threat intelligence. Let me give you an example or a case study to make it easier for you to understand what do we mean by threat intelligence. Consider that a security team of an organization analyzes all the data breaches that happened in the past, along with all the vulnerabilities and exploits that led to that breach. Okay? The outcome of the analysis may be informative to them to gain an understanding of what's happening in the past, but doesn't really help in stopping possible future threats, because simply it doesn't provide any power of prediction. We don't predict what might happen in the future. The past threats or what happened in the past is not absolutely an indication for what might happen in the future, especially in the area of cybersecurity. And with the digital transformation and with all the agile approaches that hackers are using in order to compromise system, and this is something I'm going to talk about in a few slides. So, where is the challenge here? So we started by the problem. We understand the problem. We understand the implications and the consequences of the problem, like for example data breaches. We understand now that the current solutions are actually not sufficient. And or science or researchers or scientists are suggesting that threat intelligence actually, it's the magic that's going to change everything. Okay? But what's the challenge of implementing threat intelligence? Every organization is different, and threat intelligence frameworks are custom tailored to the business process itself and the organization's risk, as there is no one size fits all in threat intelligence frameworks, because simply in threat intelligence we don't only rely on cyber data, it's cyber data and business data and performance data as well. So, how to enable or to implement threat intelligence? A key enabler to implement threat intelligence is data intelligence. Data intelligence is about turning the cyber data into useful insights to drive effective decisions to defend against potential future cybersecurity threats. And from my point of view, the cybersecurity problem all starts from the data. If we have the right data to log, if we have the right data to analyze, we will come up with the right conclusions and decisions when it comes to risk management and incident response. Data intelligence provides organizations with a better understanding of their business and threat data to automate and speed risk management and incident response, allowing developing effective and measurable security controls. Data intelligence provides context-rich transparency and visibility, and interpretation of cyber and business data and decisions in order to improve productivity, efficiency, effectiveness across the whole organization security posture. Okay. So now we're saying that threat intelligence is amazing, it's gonna solve all of our problems. It's a bit challenging to enable threat intelligence, and in order to implement threat intelligence, we have to enable data intelligence first. So either we're talking about data intelligence or threat intelligence, call these systems intelligent-driven solutions. In order to design, implement, and develop these intelligent-driven solutions, we need machine learning and AI. And recent research claims that implementing building blocks of practical AI and ML facilitates automation and orchestration to develop such security solutions that can keep up with the scale, speed, complexity, adaptability of today's cybersecurity threats. Machine learning in the cybersecurity industry is not a new term. Over the past decade, ML techniques have been used heavily to detect anomalies and zero-day threats. But actually, the focus now has been changed and shifted from detecting threats in real time into achieving predictive powers. So the whole idea is simply, I want to know that there is something wrong is going to happen before it happens. So the research is going crazy, and even the industry, about the idea of implementing threat intelligence in order to provide the optimal security posture for organizations. But let's talk about this from a research perspective. In the next few slides, I will talk with you about all the hype surrounding AI and machine learning for cybersecurity, and how machine learning and AI can be utilized in order to achieve predictive powers, in order to solve many cybersecurity problems like the data breaches problem and other problems. Okay. Here, I'm not telling you how to implement, start from here, I'm not telling you how to implement threat intelligence because, again, as I said, this is just something, a new technology that has been recently introduced. It's been investigated by many industry partners, organizations, and universities as well in terms of R&D. But I will talk about this from a research perspective. Okay, if I want to enable let's say I'm a vendor who want to develop a threat intelligence platform where it can be used by organizations. What are the challenges that I need to solve first before saying or claiming that I have the right threat intelligence platform? The first problem is the complexity of the threat landscape, and this is a very important factor we shouldn't ignore. The increasing volume and the quick evolution of the threat landscape makes organizations less immune to the evolving capabilities of modern cyber threats that consist of a multitude of complex attacks. Hackers nowadays are undergoing their own digital infrastructure and leveraging agile development to quicken the pace of malware development, to outpace threat analysis techniques and modern security solutions. AI is being used to automate attacks on a larger scale, and not relying anymore on the human element or these small scale attacks in order to execute attacks and exploit vulnerabilities. So, threat intelligence should deal with the evolving nature of the threats and to be adapted continuously for better detection and performance results. The second problem is the complexity of the cyber data. We live in the world of big data. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard about the word big data. Now we're talking about an immense amount of cyber data, which presents security teams with both a challenge, I would say a challenge first, and opportunity. Opportunity because with the huge amount of data that we have, either cyber data or business data, this give us new opportunities actually to detect the unknown, to predict what might happen in the future. But the problem again, every minute millions of cyber data from different sources in multiple formats are being collected, generating a massive amount of log data and alerts that creates a deafening noise level. With such massive amount of cyber data collected frequently, many organizations are unable to prioritize the most meaningful ones, accurately discern patterns, and pinpoint trends to discover data-driven competitive features. What's the problem with data? The problem with cyber data is poor cyber data management and analytics can lead to too many false alarms. Too many false alarms, this means a higher risk of successful breaches. Cyber data management must deal with a massive flow of extremely granular and diverse data produced in real time. Clean cyber data is the key to effectively implement ML in order to enable threat intelligence. Because simply data leads to metadata, and the metadata are being used by the machine learning models. So unclean data will lead to inaccurate metadata and subsequently wrong results in predictions. Another problem as well with cyber data is the automation process itself. In order to get rid of all the irrelevant data, sift through all the data that we have in order to find the useful ones, the useful insights coming from all the kinds of unstructured data sources that we have. Without a precise systematic analysis to classify and make sense of this data, organizations are at risk of not being able to discover data-driven competitive features. I'm not gonna talk more here about cyber data. Cyber data actually, it's from my point of view, cyber data is the starting point, either for the industry, for the research. It's the starting point, and if we are able to produce clean, properly managed cyber data, I claim that we would be able to solve many of our cybersecurity problems. The third challenge that I will talk about in order to enable threat intelligence or data intelligence or generally intelligence-driven solutions is the feature engineering problem. What does this mean? Let me explain this in a simple way for you. Machine learning or AI requires data, not a small amount of data. Actually, we need a significant amount of data to build the classifiers. And if you're not aware, if you're not familiar with machine learning and AI, classifiers mainly the algorithms that we're going to use in order to effectively achieve predictive powers. The problem is determining the right data sources, the right data sets, and exactly how much data can be enough to train a machine learning model or algorithm is a challenge. And the challenge here is because this problem is associated with the feature engineering problem. What do you mean by feature engineering? Feature engineering is the process of pre-processing existing data to build new and more interesting features. The quality of features selected is more important than the number of features fed into the system. This doesn't mean that the number is not important. Actually, the number is very important, but the quality of these features are way more important. Feature engineering is usually guided by domain knowledge. What do you mean by domain knowledge? It's the experience and the expertise of the cybersecurity professionals who know about operating system and how operating system works. For example, kernels, and I know that in this line of code, or for example in web services and operating system, whatever platform we are trying to protect, we know the weak points, we know how these systems work. So again, we're relying on the ontology of the science itself, or the domain knowledge. And here comes the problem, okay? Because with the complexity of cyber data and the complexity of the digital infrastructure of nowadays, the domain knowledge or the human brain is not able to cope anymore with the complexity of today's digital transformation. So this is making implementing machine learning into the cybersecurity industry very challenging. Therefore, the focus now has shifted from traditional supervised and unsupervised machine learning approaches towards the deep learning approach. I'm not going to deep learning algorithms and approaches. I'm not going to talk more about deep learning and models. It's one of the algorithms under the machine learning and AI umbrella. But anyway, a unique feature about deep learning is it doesn't require the process of feature engineering. Again, doesn't require the domain knowledge guided by the cybersecurity experts. Let me check the time, making sure I'm going well. Yep, now, yep, attendees can't hear you well. Okay, Abdullah, can raise my voice. I'm already raising my voice and I'll try to come closer to microphone. Hopefully you can hear me properly now. If you can just text me, Abdullah, and saying that everything's fine would be great. Okay. Another challenge in order to implement threat intelligence is the transparency and visibility. What do you mean by transparency and visibility? Machine learning models actually have a reputation of being black box. Black box means we don't know what's going on inside the model. We don't know based on what criteria, what reasons the model has taken a specific decision. This makes it harder to understand or explain the conclusions that a machine learning model comes out with. Actually, in the cybersecurity industry, businesses need a greater transparency into how machine learning operates in practice and the entire workflow of the learning process. Because this transparency will help us in the decision making in two different aspects. First, to enable taking the right actions that might be needed to fine-tune the model itself to achieve more accurate results. Second, to enable businesses understand their threat landscape and to automate incident response and risk management. In SOCs, in cybersecurity operations centers, we can't rely anymore on the human element in order to respond to incidents and plan risk management. Because simply, again, when we talk about the large landscape of the business data, when we talk about the complex landscape of the cyber threat landscape itself, this means that we need to automate this process. And a key way to help us to automate this is by enabling transparency. Transparency in machine learning, which means if a model is saying, okay, here is an attack that happened or about to happen, and here's how to respond to it. To say here's how to respond to it, actually, we need to know exactly on what reasons, on which aspects exactly the model has relied on in order to take this specific decision. I'll check my phone to make sure that Abdullah didn't send any. No, I haven't received. Okay. One of the last challenges I will talk about it in order to enable threat intelligence is the adversarial machine learning. Machine learning will never be the silver bullet in cybersecurity industry to stop hackers, in comparison to fields like image recognition or natural language processing. These two areas where machine learning is prospering. Hackers will always try to find a weakness in the machine learning models to bypass the implementing security mechanisms, especially since many more hackers are now able to utilize machine learning to carry out their endeavors. The problem arises in systems which employ machine learning models. Machine learning models are typically trained and tested on input data that are assumed to come from the same original distributions. However, if malicious inputs are fed as input to the machine learning model itself, the system could be compromised and security issues such as data breaches can become a lot more straightforward to achieve. A machine learning model is expected to perform well on unseen testing data after being deployed in real world, but this is not often what's happening in real world, because this is in many cases is violated in adversarial real world, where hackers try to morph its input adversarial data to increase the misclassification rate in the ML model. And again, misclassification rate in the ML model means tricking the ML model to take wrong decisions, to say about unbenign data or malicious data that they are benign data, for example. It's also notable that explainability problem could be a double-edged sword for deep learning. So I just, in the previous slide, I spoke about that explainability and transparency and visibility is really important in machine learning for two different reasons: to fine-tune the performance of the model itself and to help organizations and industry automate the process of incident response. But actually, if we enable full transparency into how machine learning models operate, this may expose them to adversarial attacks to alter how they make influences from live cyber data, or to poison them by injecting poison data into the training model itself. So again, in every challenge or in every problem that we just discussed in the last few slides, we see a challenge and opportunity. So again, cybersecurity, to end this, machine learning will never be that silver bullet in the cybersecurity industry, because if it introduces a new opportunity, on the other hand, it introduces another couple of challenges that we need to solve. And it's not only about the adversarial world as well. Actually, research has proved that deep learning approaches, which is highly utilized now in the cybersecurity industry, could be exploited to execute DDoS attacks, to execute control flow hijacking attacks, for example. So again, what I want to say here is threat intelligence, with all the hype happening about threat intelligence, data intelligence, intelligent-driven solutions. No, it's not the magic that's going to solve all of our problems. Actually, it introduced a new set of opportunities, but on the other side, it introduced a larger set of challenges and new research points that we need to solve. So, how we can take this into action? We spoke about different sets of challenges and opportunities as well, and how we can take this into action. So the new trend now is we need to develop a reference model for those vendors and organizations who are looking to implement intelligent-driven architectures, either threat intelligent or data intelligent, that can utilize machine learning to support security analytics and threat intelligence. An intelligent-driven architecture that can be utilized using machine learning and AI should have three key components: the data ops component, the AI ops component, and the DevOps component. Each one of these components is really a huge research area, either in the industry or the academic side. I'll briefly explain for you what do we mean by data ops, AI ops, and DevOps. Let me just check that there are no notifications from Abdullah. Yep, all good. Okay. Data ops. Data ops actually is a process-oriented methodology to improve the quality and reduce the cycle time of data analytics. This makes it impossible to meet the data analytics needs in such data-driven or intelligent-driven architectures. Data ops govern the end-to-end life cycle of data, including data pipeline orchestration, for example, to build a directed data workflow that contains all data access, integration, modeling, visualization steps into the data analytics production process. It is also beneficial in automating testing to monitor the production quality of all artifacts in the data analytics process. Data ops also govern the deployment automation to allow continuous code and configuration moving from development environments into production, including tracking, updating, synchronization, integration, maintenance of the code. Last but not least, for example, data model deployment to make reproducible development environments and reusable analytics components that can facilitate data migration across different distributed environments and platforms. The second key component of that reference model that I'm proposing today is the AI Ops. AI Ops is the application of AI for IT operations, or more specifically security operations, by combining AI and machine learning to provide full visibility into the system state and performance. AI Ops aims to capture large data sets of any type from different sources in different formats, velocity, and volumes, to apply automated analysis to predict the threat landscape. The last component here in the reference model that I'm proposing today is DevOps. DevOps is about putting AI ops and data ops together to embrace the scale and speed needed for intelligent driven architectures and delivering cutting edge data driven solutions. DevOps improves system agility and flexibility of AI platforms by automating the path from development to production, by predicting the effect of the deployment on the production and automatically responding to challenges on how the production environment or the production environment is performing. So sorry, I went a bit more into the research side in the last 3 points. I just wanted to simplify them for those who don't have experience in that field. And by that, now I finished my talk. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you really enjoyed and find something useful out of this talk. So now I'm going to check my phone if you sent any questions on Wova. So yeah, we don't have any questions. So feel free anyway to contact me. You can reach me on my LinkedIn or my email address. Send me an email. I'm absolutely more than happy to have individual chats if you're interested in this topic. I also published a scientific paper about this topic, discussing these challenges a bit further in depth. So if you're interested to have a look at this paper as well, you're gonna find it under my Google Scholar profile. So thank you so much for watching me, and I'm not sure now, Abdullah, should I just end the live stream or should I stay live for a couple of more minutes? It's a very weird feeling that I'm not really sure. I feel that I'm talking to myself, so I'm not getting any reaction from the audience. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll check the questions again for the last time. And if you haven't sent, yep, I can see now comments are coming up. Can't hear you clearly. Voice is very low. Oh, okay. Oh my God, I just saw these comments. So I hope. So not really quite sure. I hope you. Oh, I'll be very sad if the voice quality wasn't really good. Voice is very low. Please raise your voice. Oh my God. Oh, okay. My apology once again for the voice. I tried to use an external mic here to make sure that my voice is loud and clear, but looks like it wasn't. My deep apology for that. And anyway, all the details of the talk that I spoke about is in my journal paper that I just published. So feel free to refer to it or go back to it if you want to understand more about the field. And yeah, one more time, check the feedback. If there are no questions, I will just end it from here. Sorry, I'm giving the talk, by the way, before I close off. I'm giving the talk in English, but I'm Egyptian already, so I would just ask to deliver the talk in English. So feel free to reach me if you've got a question in Arabic or English. Feel free to approach me and talk with me. And yeah, thank you so much again for joining me and turning up to this talk, and hope to see you or talk to you soon in another occasion. And I'm going to end the live streaming here. Thank you.